Marami nang nilalabas ang RTX 50 series card sa market and isa si MSI sa mga naglabas ng ilang variants noon. Pero this time, MSI is bringing back a nameplate that we last saw years ago. Kung naghanap kayo ng flagship grade performance with more VRAM, liquid cooling, and may kakaibang display, ladies and gentlemen, this is the MSI GeForce RTX 5090 32G Lightning Z. Alam naman natin ang mga RTX 5090 ay power hungry. With dual 16-pin connectors, hindi ito basta-basta magpapagana ng ordinaryong power supply. So kung gagamitin mo ito ng mumurahing power supply, siguradong garantisado ito. You actually need something good like itong MSI MPG AI 1600TS na gamit natin in this video just to feed this GPU properly. Sa video na to, we're going to see if ito na ba yung ultimate RTX 5090 that you can buy at the moment. And we'll check out its key innovation and features gaya nitong hybrid liquid cooling solution along with its industry first 8-inch display. And we're going to test its performance on both its default overclocking and extreme BIOS profiles. Pati na rin thermals nito on both synthetic and gaming loads. And starting with the unboxing experience. Grabe, hindi lang siya basta box. The package alone is huge and heavy. Opening it, para kang nag-unlock ng weapon box with this double door mechanism. Inside, the accessory pack is insane. You get a vertical GPU holder kit with PCI 5.0 riser cable, anti-sag support stand, BIOS switch tool keychain, a portal NFC card, and a GPU PCB style thank you card. And even 3 different lightning magnets to customize your setup. You also get specific cables like the VCHI cable for manual voltage monitoring, and a dedicated Type-C to Type-A cable for display panel, and a 1-to-4 PCA dongle power connector. Now, let's talk about the design because I think this is where the Lightning Z really separates itself. Its aesthetics is heavily inspired by fighter jets. Merong real carbon fiber finish that runs across the shroud and backplate. Hindi siya sticker lang. And it provides genuine structural rigidity while keeping the card lighter than it looks. On the side, you'll see the limited edition branding. In our case, may nakalagay na Philippines. So this means it is meant for this country. Medyo subtle na flex pero somehow alam mong rare item yung hawak mo. Adding to that aggressive look is the signature lighting cut RGB that runs across the shroud. Hindi lang siya basta ilaw. It features a sharp C-shaped flow that mimics a lightning strike, really selling that electrified aesthetic. Form factor wise, it's surprisingly manageable. The bracket itself is a 2-slot design, but dahil may protruding display and shroud, it effectively takes up about 2.5 slots. So this makes it significantly thinner than most air-cooled RTX 5090s, which are taking up 3 to 4 slots these days. And of course, this card's most prominent feature, the world's first 8-inch LCD display. Unlike small screens we've seen before with many graphics cards, this one is a fully functional display panel. Basically, an extended screen of your computer. Pwede nyong kontrolin at i-customize ito using their new Lightning Hub web application or the Overdrive app on your phone to monitor stats and maybe tune performance on the fly. Pagdating naman sa software, dito papasok yung MSI Center with its new Flash Dash feature. Unlike other cards na limited lang sa GIFs, this gives you total control since this is a fully functioning display in itself. Sa hardware monitor tab, real-time mong makikita yung vital stats like GPU clock, VRAM usage, fan duty, and temperatures nang hindi kailangan ng OSD overlay habang naglalaro. Pero ang favorite ko dito is yung video tab. Hindi lang siya local files. Pwede kang mag-embed ng YouTube link directly. So kung gusto mo mag-loop ng music, video, or any other YouTube vids dyan, pwedeng-pwede. Meron ding lifestyle tab for simple clocks and custom images. And the best feature, the extended display mode. Once you toggle this switch, recognize na siya ng Windows as a legitimate secondary monitor. Pwede mong i-drag yung mga app windows dyan mismo sa display ng graphics card. Full brightness control is also just a slider away. So hindi siya nakakasilaw kung naglalaro ka sa madilim na kwarto. Under the hood naman, this card is built to be perfect. It features a custom PCB with 3 ounce copper layer for better conductivity and stability. Power delivery is handled by a massive 40-phase VRM design with quality DRMOS and lightning chokes to ensure clean voltage even under extreme loads. Speaking of power, this is where things get serious. The Lightning Z features dual native 16-pin 12A2x6 connectors, and since this card can pull up to 1000 watts, when using the extreme BIOS, you cannot skip on the power supply. MSI officially recommends using power supply like the MSI MPG AI 1600TS PCIe 5. This is a titanium-rated power supply na designed to handle the massive power spikes of the RTX 5090 Lightning na walang kahirap-hirap. To keep all that power cool, MSI used a specialized AIO liquid cooling solution for the RTX 5090 Lightning Z. This uses a next-generation pump that increases liquid flow by up to 71% and pressure by up to 44.5% compared to previous generations. Meron din itong high-quality flexible tubes which makes installing the massive 360mm radiator much easier. Beneath the pump, merong full cover copper cold plate that actively cools the GPU, the VRAM, and the MOSFETs, ensuring that no component is left to overheat. As we've seen on this thermal imaging camera, spread out well ang inent towards the copper plate. And sa radiator naman, it uses a patented hybrid fin structure alternating between dense and sparse fins to create hot and cold zones for better heat exchange. And the fans, there are lighting fans made from liquid crystal polymer. They reduce noise by 5.2% while keeping high static pressure. On testing, the fans only emits around 40 to 44 decibel of noise, which is not really bad. Now, for the part most of you have been waiting for. Benchmarks. We tested this on our Ryzen 7 9800X 3D test bench along with the X870 motherboard, 32GB and DDR5 RAM at 6000 megatransfer per second and a 1TB NVMe Gen 5 SSD. We started with the synthetic benchmarks on the default overclocking BIOS sa 3D Mark Port Royal which tests ray tracing performance. Pumalo tayo ng massive 41,839 sa score. For TimeSpy, we hit 37,372 and sa TimeSpy Extreme 1, we got 19,566. Pero ang pinaka-impressive results dito is the NVIDIA DLSS feature test. With DLSS off, the card pushed roughly 96 FPS. Pero nung tinurn on natin yung DLSS, grabe, it skyrocketed to 524 FPS. That is 5 times performance multiplier thanks to AI generation. Moving on to gaming. Let's start with the Blackmeat Wukong. At native 4K TIA with cinematic settings, the MSI RTX 5090 Lightning Z is flexing hard, averaging around 82 FPS. Pero nung tinurn on natin yung DLSS 4 with ray tracing, the average FPS jumped to 189 FPS. Notice the power draw here. We are pulling around 608 watts on the GPU alone. This is where that AI 1600TS PSU earns its spot. Para naman dun sa mga naka-high refresh 1440p monitors, it's even wilder. Native 1440p cinematic gives you around 107 FPS, but flipping to DLSS 4 shoots that up to 313 FPS even with ray tracing on. For esports, we look at Counter-Strike 2 at very high settings. At 1440p, we're seeing an average of 590 FPS, with 1% low sitting rock solid at 226 FPS, which I think is tournament-grade stability. Even at 4K very high, it is pushing 371 FPS on average. Honestly, overkill talaga tong card na to for CS2, but it proves the card doesn't even break a sweat. Of course, the ultimate stress test, Cyberpunk 2077 with overdrive settings. At 4K, using DLSS multi-frame gen times 4 and ray tracing on Psycho, nakakuha tayo ng 351 FPS average. Let that sink in. Almost 400 FPS in a path trace game at the maximum settings available. And for those wondering about 1440p, we are seeing 194 FPS on average natively. But if you turn on all the AI bells and whistles with DLSS 4 and ray tracing in Psycho, that jumps to a staggering 496 FPS average. Yes, almost 500 FPS in Cyberpunk. And para naman sa mga racing game fans, we also tested F124. At 4K ultra settings using just native TIA, the card delivers a blistering 334 FPS average. Parang di mo nga kailangan ng DLSS dito. It's just raw rasterization power. But if you want to max out a 500Hz monitor, we have to drop the resolution to 1440p. With DLSS, frame gen, and ray tracing all enabled, we are seeing a massive 475 FPS average. And if you turn on ray tracing off, still at 1440p with DLSS frame gen, that is where we hit the absolute game engine limit at 621 FPS average. Also, here's Battlefield 6 on 4K with multi-frame gen times 4 on ultra settings. We have an average of around 500 FPS. Pero syempre, hindi tayo tumigil dyan. We flip the BIOS switch to extreme mode para makita kung ano ba talaga ang kayang ibuga ng card na to. And the biggest difference we saw wasn't just in frame rates. It was the clock speed. Sa extreme BIOS, consistently pumapalo pa ng over 3000 MHz yung GPU core. Performance-wise, sa Blackmeat Wukong at native 4K, we saw a nice bump from 82 FPS to 87 FPS. That's roughly 6% gain just by flipping a switch. Pero interesting enough, sa titles like Cyberpunk 2077 at F124 at 4K native TIA, halos identical lang yung average FPS natin, hovering around 120 FPS and 335 FPS on average respectively. Ibig sabihin, we're hitting diminishing returns na sa ibang game engines. Hindi na agad nagtra-translate sa more frames yung extra power kahit mas mataas na ang clock speed. And the power cost, nakita namin pumalo yung power draw ng 654 watts sa Cyberpunk. Pero ang mas nakakagulat is yung temps. Chill lang at 61 degrees Celsius. Again, malaking factor yung AIO cooler ng MSI dito. and to see how it performs thermally with heavier loads, simulating long gaming sessions. Tinest din namin ito ng 30-minute benchmark run with F124. We had a maximum temperature of 64.1 degrees Celsius with an average of 56.5. And also we did a 30-minute run of MSI combustor stress test and nakakuha tayo ng max temperature of 64.6 degrees Celsius with an average of 63.3 degrees Celsius, all with an ambient temperatures of 29 degrees. This is truly impressive and confirms the effectiveness of the cooling system. By the way, using the MSI Center, we can see the efficiency and output wattage of our power supply, which helps with monitoring how much power your system is consuming. So kung may budget kayo, bibilin nyo ba ito? Let's be real, this card is not for the average gamer. I think para ito sa mga enthusiasts, the record breakers on the overclocking scene, and also the collectors. With only 1,300 units in existence, owning one is definitely a statement. I was impressed by the design and engineering, the full cover copper coverage, carbon fiber build, the legitimate utility and usefulness of the 8-inch screen, and the sheer overclocking potential of that 1,000 watt extreme BIOS. Now, for the big question, the price. As of the time of recording this video, we don't have any ideas on the official SRP yet. Pero based on the specs and the limited run nature, may estimated price of around, I think, 250,000 to 280,000. Pero take note, since meron tayong global memory shortage right now, especially for the GDDR7, feeling ko mas magiging mahal pa, lalo na ito pagdating dito sa local market. For the cons, first is yung case choices nyo. Since nire-require nito yung 360mm radiator to mount and ideally vertically mounted din itong graphics card para makita yung display. Kailangan natin ng case na kayang i-accommodate ito pareho and still pwedeng mag-accommodate ng radiators for passively CPU AIOs. Then of course, yung presyo niya. So kung naghahanap kayo ng over-the-top or ultimate GPU performance and money is no object to you, this is the card to get. Just make sure to pair it with a power supply like the MSI MPG AI 1600TS to feed this beast properly. So what do you think, guys? Is the 8-inch screen a gimmick or a game changer? Would you buy this card? Let us know in the comments section.